welcome to the Chrissy B Show. Now, have you ever had a toxic boss that makes you dread going into work? Well, today I'll be speaking about the signs of a toxic boss and be speaking to Umesh, Rashada and Mib Bazia on their experiences with toxic bosses. And we also asked you, the public, their experience with difficult bosses. And HR Associate Maria Asemenah will be here to shed some light on how to deal with such people. We'll also be given the benefits of power walking in today's fitness tip from Jane Rafter, and we'll also be taking a look at how our living has changed during a visit to the Jeffrey Museum. But first, we have the news with Ian and Helena.
Hello.
Hi, Chrissy. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
We're very well, and you
well.
read that so well tonight.
Yeah, that was my first attempt.
That was a tricky one. Did it very well.
Toxic bosses, have you ever had one or been one yourself
Well,
that you'd be willing to admit to?
I don't know about being a toxic boss. I like things done properly, so I like people to work with me. But as far as toxic bosses, not toxic bosses, but people I've worked with in the past have been a little bit
difficult,
underhand. But it's normally dog eat dog situation.
You know, I used to work with a lot of difficult people. I used to work with a lot of major celebrities. A lot of PRs used to sort of give me their worst celebrities to do because they knew I could always handle them. So I think the way I always sort of got things across was to actually be as professional as I could with them. You know, there used to be artists who I'd use all sorts of techniques with, but whenever I was working with an artist, I would know beforehand exactly what the film, the show, whatever it may be, was all about. I'd set the entire stage for them so they could walk in or walk out in 30 seconds if they wanted to. But I've had times when I worked with a very famous comedian at the BBC, and I'd actually helped this young man at the start of his career. And by the time I was working with him at the BBC, he had now rose to quite a lot of fame and decided after about 3 frames he would walk off set.
Oh.
So I very quickly pulled him back and sort of told him, you know, what I sort of want from the way of professionalism.
In this kind of industry, you get that because you have people for tiny slots. So sometimes people will walk out quickly, and it's just you get used to it.
Okay.
But,
well, let's give the viewers some signs of a toxic boss in case you don't know what one is. If a person or a boss makes you feel this way, they're probably toxic. So obviously there are cases and cases, you have to take each case individually. But for example, your boss damages your self-esteem, your boss doesn't motivate or inspire you, your boss ignores you, your boss makes you dread work, your boss lacks integrity, your boss makes you wish you had a better one. So there's a few things. And this was taken off, I can't remember the website, I did have it here. This was taken from a website called Pulse. And they're saying here what makes a boss toxic: a boss that lacks integrity, breaks promises and is dishonest, and also one that speaks loudly, rudely and one-sidedly to staff. Now we do have a few others, but I'll read more out afterwards. But yeah.
Can I say none of those apply to you? You're fabulous to work with.
Although I do have to, maybe I'll save this for later, because I think I used to be a bit toxic, to be honest.
Did you?
Without realising
I can't imagine it. Do you know, we've known each other for quite a while now, and you're fabulous.
Well, I have developed quite a bit over the years, but I'll tell the viewers more about that afterwards. But I think people can change, and I think sometimes some bosses, although staff may sort of pick them out and say you're really toxic, but sometimes they don't actually realise what they're doing because they're so into their work. But we'll talk about that later. Yep. Let's have the news now. Before we run out of time.
Okay. So our lovely Duchess Kate, obviously she was spotted shopping, but she's had her first official engagement for the Art Room, which is she's a patron of the Art Room, and she was seen at a London school, and they have like therapy rooms, which is really exciting. But she was wearing this lovely dress. I like to see what she's wearing. So she had this lovely dress, which was dark actually, but it had a little bit of colour on the edges of the sleeves, etc., by Madison, a British designer. So that was quite nice to see her like that. Very jolly. But she's always known as supposedly being this lazy person, and she doesn't do enough official meet and greets and things, and she's always compared to the Philippine Queen, and you know, it's so unfair.
I have to
it's
say,
incredibly
though,
unfair.
I have to say, ever since this came out, there was a poll a couple of weeks ago saying that she's only done 76 assignments in a given period compared to, you know, the other members of the royal family. All of a sudden, she started appearing again, you know, and both the things that she's done in the past few days weren't on the royal website at all. So they've suddenly, something has come in and
See, I don't believe all this. You know, she's got a young child. She's got a little baby and she's about to have another one.
It's
And mum's
true.
allowed
Give
to
her
be
a
a mum.
break.
I think she will do. She'll do more soon.
I love the way you two just disagree on,
We
on most
agree
things.
on lots, but there's some things we don't. So I don't
we're still
know.
very good friends. We're
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
toxic.
it's nice,
We're not
isn't it?
toxic, are we?
No, not at all, not at all. Again, I know that Ian mentioned last week as well about the Queen will be the longest on the throne. It's the 9th of September and she will have been on the throne for 64 years.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing? She'll be 89 at the time.
Wow.
All those years. 25, from the age of
That's
25.
Let's see if she'll stay until September.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know?
She will.
I know what you've been
There's
hinting.
no abdication. Absolutely no way.
I know.
But,
I know.
yeah.
So just talking about indulgence for a minute as well. Tamara Eccleston, the daughter of billionaire, I think, Bernie Eccleston, and she spent a lot of money in her own right. In fact, if I remember right, I think even her home cost about £60 million. She married about just over a year ago, and she's had a small baby now. And the latest thing for her baby is to have the baby's nails manicured
you're joking.
as well.
You are joking.
I
I'm
have
not
something
joking.
else. I have something else to say about it. I think.
The baby is now taken to a salon.
But when you say baby, how?
We're talking about a year old. The baby's taken to a salon.
10 months.
Okay.
Is it a girl?
Sophia, yeah.
Well, I hope so.
No, because I know. Look, let me explain this one. Because I have friends from Brazil, and the men do have manicures, but not
do
colour.
they?
They
I
just
like
put
that.
like a
Oh, well,
It's
this
nice to
is a
look after
colour as
clear,
well.
no varnish.
This is a colour.
I think she's been in Dubai having a lovely time, sun-soaked, and obviously
You don't put nail varnish
But
on a baby. I'm
you-
sorry. Sorry. I'm going
it's a
back
sort
to
of
that.
manicure, but she obviously went to the salon to have her own things done.
Yes.
So she's introduced her little girl to it too. So I suppose in a few years they'll have nice girly treats together. So if you look at it like that, she's obviously got to bring her baby with her. Unless
So
she
her
has an
baby
au pair.
plays with the toys while she's having her manicure done, not has a
I
manicure.
don't know.
No, I don't like
I
that.
don't know.
I
I
don't
don't-
like babies.
I don't think it's
At
quite
least it's
bad
not
as
cats,
taking it.
though, is it?
Oh, I see. Yes, you've got a nice little story.
Thanks, Ian. Yes, he's referring to the time I painted my sister's dog's nails when she was sleeping.
Oh, bright red,
Bright
was it? That's so funny. Oh.
Moving swiftly on.
Moving swiftly on. So Noel Gallagher, his daughter Anais, is 14 now. In fact, she looks just like him, I've got to say. But she's got a new modelling contract for Accessorize, as they do. She's really good. Yeah, she's only 14,
Yeah.
so she just got into it. And her ambition is to be a model for Burberry, so she's very excited.
Okay.
Yeah, so have you seen pictures of her?
No,
I
I haven't,
hadn't, I'd
actually.
never seen her at all.
Do we have one?
But I can imagine
Probably
her dad is her dad's quite go-get and out there and
Yeah.
always embarrassing her apparently.
Oh dear.
She's got a crush on Harry Styles. But anyway, so that's her.
Well, which young girl doesn't really?
I know. I
Absolutely.
think she's a TV presenter as well for animal rights.
Okay. I didn't know that
They're
about
quite
her.
an interesting
And there's
character.
a
Look her up
strange
now.
story about Britney Spears protecting her sister, I think, the other week. And allegedly she pulled a knife out on a man just to actually
I think it
protect...
was Britney Spears, I think it was her sister.
Was
that
it her
the
sister?
was protecting her friend.
Yeah. And
Allegedly.
allegedly...
She did, but
we say allegedly.
I don't know, is it brave? I think it's really dangerous, like to be a young girl to pull out a knife on, to try and protect someone, because
Well, I think you
without
just-
the strength, someone could turn that back on you very easily
Yeah. But I think you just kind of react, don't you? Under
in that moment.
Yeah.
And I was
You don't know
watching
what
this
you're
terrible
capable of.
program the other night where you could actually buy knives now. It was amazing how quickly you can buy a knife on the internet
Here in the UK.
in the UK and how cheap they are. I mean, we're talking about huge knives, machetes for about £20.
Really? Gosh.
So no wonder all these gangs are sort of getting.
Yeah.
There's all this sort of trouble with knives, and there's although there's supposed to be an age regulation
how can they?
on the thing, that they can't
Can't
actually police that at all.
No.
So they could be going anywhere to some of
That's
these
terrible,
companies.
isn't
So it's a strange thing to happen. Russell Crowe.
Yeah, Russell Crowe, he's been having a go at older ladies. Naughty man. Well, no, not in that way. But apparently having a go as in he thinks that people of a certain age, ladies of a certain age, I think 40 and over, shouldn't be moaning about their lack of parts to play. So Helen Mirren, I think, was talking about how she used to play loads of different characters. Now there's not many that are suitable for her because she's of a certain age. And Russell Crowe thinks that really you should just shut up and get on with it and just play characters of your own age. And I think Meryl Streep's in
there are plenty of them, aren't there?
I think so. I mean, we've got Dame Judi. I mean, we've got so many artists and they work all the time. But I think Meryl Streep actually was agreeing as well.
I think the problem was that what he was really referring to is sort of Hollywood, starlets as well, who will come to an age, and there's obviously, it's like newsreaders, it's like anything, there's always people from underneath coming up. And you have to accept that in life, I think the thing I always sort of remembered is
okay. Okay, bye. So that we're getting booted off the TV soon.
so I'm gone tonight, Chrissy.
Another
Why don't you put the two of you off now? We've run out of time.
Oh no.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Well, it was very nice meeting you anyway.
We look forward to
see you
hearing
again
more
next time on the show. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Okay, well, do stay tuned because after the break, I'll be joined by two guests who had toxic bosses.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to the show. And I'm going to be speaking to two gentlemen who both had toxic bosses in just a moment. But first of all, let's take a look at this fitness tip from Jane Rafter on power walking.
Hi everybody, it's Jane here with your fitness tips, and today I'd like to talk to you about the advantages of power walking. And if you've seen my clips before, you'll know I'm a great fan of power walking, and there are several reasons for that. So if someone who's not fit, quite deconditioned, says to me, I really don't know where to start, say they've had bad knees or a bad back and they just feel very unfit, I always say start with walking. Normal walking if you're feeling really unfit, and then build up to power walking. So that just means that you're walking at a pace enough to really raise your heart rate. You never actually run, so it's very gentle on the joints, but you walk in at quite a pace as though you're late for something, and you just keep walking. And in terms of how long, if you're feeling really unfit, you start with 10 minutes and you build it up and you build it up. So you can build up the speed and you can build up the duration of time. My advice is to get yourself some good running shoes, because although you're not running, you're still walking at quite a pace, and you do want support for your ankles. You're less likely to fall over. And it supports the knees and the back as well. Maybe get a buddy to go with you. It's nice to have a chat and a walk. Maybe get a dog or borrow someone's dog. There's loads of beautiful outdoor places you can get fresh air. It's good for you psychologically as well as physically. So set yourself a walking program, and I guarantee you'll feel fit and hopefully you'll really enjoy it as well. So good luck, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, Jane. So we are speaking about toxic bosses today. And just to recap something I said earlier about what makes a boss toxic, is a boss that lacks integrity, breaks promises and is dishonest, is someone that causes dissension among staff members by his or her actions and comments. So instead of bringing people together, he or she says things that just kind of separates people, speaks loudly, rudely and one-sidedly to staff, loves brown noses, tattletales and relatives who report to them. This is one that I didn't cover earlier. Another one is fails to provide rewards or recognition for positive employee performance. So maybe like everything that you do goes unrecognized, and think maybe you deserved a promotion, you didn't get it. And actually one of our guests today is going to be speaking about that too. And also, and I think a very important one, will not accept constructive feedback and suggestions for improvement. So this boss thinks they know absolutely everything. No one can tell them anything. No one can make a suggestion. And if you do, you're seen as a very bad employee. So there's just a few signs there. So let's meet our guests now. We have Umesh and we have Mib. Hello.
Hi, Chrissy.
How are you both?
Hello, good, thanks.
So you both survived toxic bosses because you're here with me on the sofa. So, but I mean, it is a terrible situation to be in. But we're going to start with your story first of all, Umesh. What was your situation?
Okay, my situation goes back to 1998. I was publications manager for a medium-sized company, nothing big. My role, the boss told me, to reduce costs, increase sales. One of the things I was doing was producing a directory called Top 1000 Caterers. And I had to increase the sales. It was hard, you know, it wasn't really easy. It was a pressurized job, but it was good, it was challenging. And on the one hand, I had to also reduce costs to increase profits for the business. So I decided to think outside the box, and we used to subscribe to this magazine from America. It's all about the eating out market in America, and I thought to myself, hang on, it's costing us money to do this. I'm selling this directory. Why don't I do a contra deal, a swap with the American company to say, look, you give me 2 years subscription to your magazine, which will reduce our costs to keep my boss happy. In return, you could then use my directory, which I'm publishing in the UK, to market your products.
And at this point, you were getting along with your boss?
Yeah, I mean,
everything
was fine. He was just saying, look, you know, you've got to try and hit targets, try and increase sales, the usual bum. So,
but not in a horrible way, just like...
Yeah, well, it starts off with nicely, then it says, come on, what's going on? And, you know, the usual pressure tactics to increase sales. So I sent a fax. In those days, there wasn't that much emails. In 1998, actually, I sent a fax to a marketing manager for this magazine, said, oh, let's do a swap. Didn't hear anything, did a usual follow-up. 3 weeks later, I got a fax back from somebody which is the owner of the organisation. I thought to myself, I didn't clinch who he was. He said, I'm coming to London in July 1998. I'd like to meet up with you. I like your idea. So I didn't think anything of it. I replied back, said, look forward to it. I'm available these dates. The guy comes in from America. It's a bit like J.R. Ewing from Dallas, Chrissy. Quite honestly, you know, I introduced him. It was a straightforward swap. Who would fly over across the pond for a £400, £500 deal, you know? Yeah. His tickets probably cost more. Anyway, he came over, and throughout our conversation, he kept asking me, you know, where do you think the business is going? Can you introduce new products? He was trying to pick my brain. Then he said, I'd like you to introduce you to your boss. I said, well, you know, Roger, you don't really do that. You need to, I don't think you need an appointment to see my boss. And he said, no, it would take 2 minutes. So we knocked on my boss's door. I said to him, look, I'm having this meeting. This guy's from America. So I introduced them. And then my boss said, okay, well, nice meeting you. Umesh will deal with you. That's okay. I'm really busy. So his attitude towards the person from overseas, he happened to be a chief executive of a large publishing organisation,
and
not just publishing.
Just dismissive of him. Exactly.
So he said, well, Umesh will deal with you, and that was it. So I thought, okay. Well, within a couple of minutes of him myself introducing the gentleman from overseas to my boss, he turned around and said, well, look, I spent this couple of hours with Umesh this morning. We really like what you've got on offer. Your products are good. Umesh is enthusiastic. I'd like to buy the whole business off you.
Oh, wow.
So my boss thought, well, what's going on? He goes, well, sorry, it's not for sale. Then he said, well, no, you didn't hear me properly. I'd like to buy the whole business. Can we make it for sale? So from that point in time to the next 6 months, my life has changed because I was given a lot of responsibility. We ended up liquidating one business to become part of a larger company in America.
At any point, did your boss sort of thank you or commend you for your
Yes, I mean, he
good
said,
work?
well, basically, we had a few redundancies. We had to shake the company around. And throughout the process, he said, well, I think you've done a very good deal, Umesh. You know, it's going to give you more challenge. You know, we'd like you to develop a new company, so new logo, new brand. And, you know, whatever we do, we'll have to sit with the corporate company which has taken us over. So I thought it was the best time in my life those days, because I only had a baby daughter then, my first daughter, Karishma. And this is how toxic he was. He only gave me 2 days paternity leave.
You're joking.
Yes, I don't know it's 2-3 weeks now, isn't it? But 2 days.
That's expert lady. Yeah, she's not
2 days.
2 days paternity leave, and that was back in the office, you know, to do the deal and wrap up whatever we were supposed to do. Then we did all that. It was a brilliant time in my life. I'm not going to lie to you. It was challenging. It was enthusiastic, and I was promised potential directorship of the new organisation.
Was it just said in passing, like?
Yeah.
Or did you really feel like he meant it?
No, I thought he meant it because, you know, I hit my targets, and I thought this deal which I did with the American company is going to do as well, bring in a lot of business and increase profits. So after Christmas, unfortunately, I was called into the boss's office at 10 to 9. First day, straight after Christmas, and I was told, unfortunately, my position had been made redundant, and I was told to go there and there. And I asked...
What, the same day?
Same day, there and there, 9 o'clock. Well,
just
10 to 9.
Leave?
Just to leave, yeah. And
how
I said...
How did you feel? When...
I thought he was just... Is it April Fool's in January, you know? I said, Peter, surely you can't, you know? Why is that? He said, well, look, the organisation which you deal with, they've got their own group marketing manager, which will be taking over your role. Okay. I said, well, you can't make me, you know. He said, no, I'm really sorry, but we've had to make your position redundant. And I said, okay, well, when did you want me to go? He said, you can go right now. I said, no, do you mind if I stay? You know, I need time to clear my desk, I need time to clear my drawer, pass on things to my colleagues, you know, make a few phone calls, I've got outstanding issues in my in-tray. And he said, well, you don't really have to do this, Umesh. And I said, no, I would rather, if you don't mind, Peter. So I did that. And throughout the day, I cleared my desk, passed on everything. And I left with
You're saying it very sort of
casually
now, but at the time,
it was very stressful. Well, at the time, I had to keep calm and thought myself, hang on a minute, we've just had a baby girl in the house, we've got a mortgage to pay, and all of a sudden, you know, where's the food for the nappies and the baby food going to come through as soon as I get made redundant? So anyway, I left with my head in the air. I left on good terms, shook hands and said, yeah, keep in contact. Then the first thing I did as soon as I left the business, in the company car park, I made a call to my brother-in-law, who happens to be a solicitor. I rang him and I told him what's happened, and he said, was you not given any notice? And he said, no. So I said, no, and he said, well, basically it's unfair dismissal. So we started the tribunal case.
All right then.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost time for a break. Now, Mib, you also have a story, and we're going to go into yours a bit more as well, Umesh. But yours was 2 bosses that you had working for the same company.
Yeah, but in 2 different branches.
And you described them both as crazy, a bit crazy. All right, so we're going to hear about that after the break, and also hear the rest of Umesh's story as well.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. So we are talking about toxic bosses today, and we're going to be hearing Mib's story in just a moment, who had 2 toxic bosses. But let's first take a look at what you guys said in the streets about what your experiences are with toxic bosses too.
I'm Cheryl here with the Chrissy B Show. Today we're in Holborn and we're going to be asking some of you, what's the worst boss you've ever had?
Oh, I had this woman not too many years ago now, same position that I'm working in now, but she's now left. And she used to go around shouting, pretty much barking at people. Was very sneaky in the way she did things, so she'd go to HR instead of consulting with you first and things like that.
She was a lot younger than me, so and she liked to boss me around quite a lot.
He's a man who phoned me up in the middle of the night to ask me why something was wrong in one of the businesses we had, and having woken me up and my wife, he said, anyway, it doesn't matter, we'll talk about it in the morning. I mean, that was the sort of man he was.
I've never had any bad bosses.
None at all?
No.
Never?
No.
That's a really good thing.
Yeah.
So all your bosses have been really nice?
Yeah, they've all been really good to me.
Okay, that's really great to hear.
I've had a few. None of them have been particularly great.
What was not great about them?
Just the pay, the way that was treated.
And then I did this silver service gig for a while. I'd never done that before. And I had this guy, and it was like the worst restaurant ever. And we served the most awful food. It was just all kind of reheated and horrible, whatever. And he'd always give this massive talk to us about how okay, you're the best team in the UK. This is a 5-star thing. And it was literally I've only been here a week. How can I be part of the best team in the UK? So I guess I wasn't really a bad guy. He was just a bit phony, you know what I mean?
So you've gone around today asking what's the worst boss you've ever had. Turns out most of you have had really nice bosses, although some of you have had some pretty horrific ones. So if you do have a bad boss, just remember to keep calm, keep cool and carry on. And from the Chrissy B Show, here's to 2015 and having nice bosses.
And in case you don't have a nice boss and they're really horrible too, we are going to be getting advice from an expert after this segment. All right, so now let's go to Mib's story, 2 toxic bosses. Yep. Can you tell us about that?
Okay, well, first of all, let me explain my position. First of all, I was 18 years old. I had just started uni, and I was generally quite like a shy and sensitive person. I'd recently gotten this job in a local stationer's, and it's a national stationer's, so it's very well known.
You excited that you had that job?
To be totally honest, I was, to a degree, kind of,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's the very first job I ever had, and but I knew I didn't want to stay in it forever. I always knew it was just going to be a stepping stone.
Your first experience.
Yeah.
Oops.
And this was back in 2007, and the manager, she was okay to me at first, but I noticed probably about a month after my probation, I noticed her expressions started changing towards me, and then afterwards, I started seeing really strange things about her, like she would just suddenly talk very loudly,
Directly shouting at you, or just in general
No, just in general.
Okay.
Even if she's speaking to a customer on the shop floor, she could literally be standing at one end of the shop floor, and you can hear absolutely everything she's saying, even if you're standing right at the other end. That's how loudly she speaks.
Oh dear.
I got into the habit of calling her frog mouth. So.
Really? Oh gosh. Okay.
And even worse than that, she had this mentality that the men should do all the physical work, while the women, she would just leave them to do whatever they want, so it's up to them to decide whether they wanted to work or not.
Oh.
However, if the women decided they wanted to do work, she would just leave them and let them get on with it. If they decided they didn't want to, she won't say anything to them directly, but when she goes into her office, she'll be speaking to herself or to anybody who just happens to be around. Oh, I don't like her. She's lazy. I don't know why I hired her. She's useless. That kind of thing. She wasn't
actually, trying to manage the people, just talking about them.
Exactly.
Which is one of the points we mentioned actually before, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Bad mouthing. Okay.
And on top of that, she seems to have a personal dislike of me. To this day, I still don't know why, because as I said, I was a shy, sensitive person. I tried to get on with everybody, and I was always punctual.
You seem very likeable.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I always did my job. I never tried to skip out on any work or anything, so I really didn't understand. And to be honest, I felt bullied. I didn't really feel comfortable.
Did you leave the company, or did you transfer to another place after that?
What it is, I was only there on Saturdays. I was only working there for Saturdays. And going back to another incident, I'd tried to apply for weekend jobs, so doing Saturday and Sundays, obviously getting more money. And because I was in uni as well, I need the money.
Yeah.
And she just flat out said no. So I thought, okay, you know what? This is going to be the kind of woman who's trying to stop me from earning money. So when I finished uni 3 years later, I decided to transfer to another branch, and I didn't tell her. I told head office straight away, and they had no problems with it. They said, "Yep, okay, fine, done." They found me a new branch that was not that far away, and I went there, went full time.
And what was your second experience then with a toxic boss?
Well, there are so many different ones. I could literally list them all day, every day.
All right, tell us about the worst experience then.
Probably the most dramatic experience, let's say. She was just generally just nasty to me. She would badmouth me in front of customers. She turns around and says that I don't do any work, that I'm lazy.
In front of customers?
In front of customers. And it got to the point where I started having to badmouth her back, quite simply, in front of customers. That's how bad it got. And but I was still a shy, sensitive person.
Because you were saying earlier that you were shy and everything. How did that affect your confidence being sort of spoken to in that way as well? Because if you're already shy and it was your sort of new experience for you working, how did that affect you?
It just kind of lowered my self-esteem, really. It just made me feel like, what am I doing here? What am I doing with my life, sort of thing? Didn't feel good at all.
Okay.
But probably about a year or so into that branch, I got on really well with one of the colleagues there, and he basically taught me to start speaking up for myself. So to basically stop being shy, stop being sensitive, learn to talk back to her, that sort of thing. Show her you're intelligent, show her you're confident, show her that you're not just going to sit back and take whatever she says to you. And so I started doing that. And he gave me one bit of...
Because obviously, you in a workplace, you do need to respect your managers and your bosses, but...
They need to respect you.
They need to also respect you. They can't be talking to you anyhow, and you can't just be sitting there taking everything. You have to stand up for yourself.
Exactly. And so what I did, on his advice, I went into the shop one day. I was on early shift, so it was literally just me and her there. And I know this probably sounds bad, but as soon as I walked in through the door, I pointed at her and I said, I want to speak to you right now.
She must have been shocked.
She was. And we had a huge argument on the shop floor. And even when the other colleagues were coming in through the front door, I was still carrying on and everything. It got to the point where she was literally getting so scared. She had to go up into the office and start singing hymns to herself to start calming herself down. And ever since then, she left me alone more. She left me alone more. So, so it was nowhere near as much, but it was still bad. And then when I transferred to the other branch, I didn't tell her, I told head office. And on my last day, she turned around and said to me, if you had told me that you were going to transfer, I wouldn't have let you go. And I said to her, why do you think I didn't tell you?
Okay. Alrighty. So, you know, sometimes people don't actually know what to do in these kinds of situations. And it's really hard. And especially if you're depending on that position, that job, you know, like yourself, you were with, you know, you had a baby, you know, just being made redundant like that, or maybe you were at uni and stuff. So it's hard to know how to deal with it, and sort of you want to kind of lash out and lash back, but then it's like, oh my God, if I do that, then I can't lose this job, and it's really, really hard, which is why we're also going to bring an expert on. I think we'll just have a couple of minutes just to quickly hear what you did, because you said you got legal advice. Yes. 1 minute, we've got a minute left. Can you wrap it in 1 minute?
Got legal advice, started off the ET Employment Tribunal form. Lots of correspondence between my solicitor and their head office and their legal team. In the end, they backed out and they gave me undisclosed sum. They said, no, Umesh, we don't want to take you to, don't want to go to tribunal. Yeah. Here's a payment. Take this lump sum and be quiet. Still didn't get my job back. It might give me some money in my back pocket and, you know, kept me some satisfaction that I was right all along, but it didn't get me my job back.
Okay. All right then. So we're going to talk more about it after the break, because we are going to be bringing on our expert in just a moment. And, you know, if you're going through like a situation like this, do stay tuned, because you're going to know what options you have to solve the situation. So do join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. So we are going to now get some expert advice from HR Associate Maria Asemenah. Did I say that right? Yay!
Yes, you did.
Because we have been, Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we have been talking about two different cases here, and, you know, both very serious and obviously damaging to both our guests here. And in the case of Umesh's situation, did he handle it in the right way, would you say, or was there anything else that he could have done there?
Yeah, I think a couple of things came out of his story. I personally believe that he was treated unfairly in terms of the situation. And, you know, in that situation, he wasn't given the chance to seek any internal remedies, to kind of discuss it with his boss or the other bosses. He was, you know, literally kind of given his marching orders. Yeah. So I think in that situation, you know, the employment tribunal option was probably his best option.
And how would a person go down that avenue?
So in order to bring about an employment tribunal case, you now need to first contact an organisation known as ACAS, and that stands for Advisory, Conciliation, Arbitration Services. And they hope to work with an employer and the employee to bring about a settlement. So they act as a mediator, effectively. Right. So by law now, before you're able to bring an employment tribunal claim, you do have to kind of go down this route. And a good majority, over 70% of cases now, are actually settled before reaching an employment tribunal.
All right, okay. So it's just to get the kind of both sides talking and...
Yeah, absolutely.
And if anyone has been unfit, by that time they'll think, okay, hang on a minute, I don't want to go to tribunal, let me sort things out.
And also, I would advise an employee to seek internal remedies before going down that route. So, you know, often individuals might feel like they don't have any other option, but, you know, maybe try to speak to another boss, or if possible, perhaps raise a grievance. So that's another internal measure that exists. But once you feel like you've exhausted those internal measures, then you can potentially look at the outside organisations.
Okay. And how about with Mib's case? Because his case was a bit different. It was like sort of bad behaviour on the boss's part, shouting and being horrible. What would you say about that?
Yeah, unpleasant. So I believe in that situation, it sounds like it was more down to the individual, perhaps rather than the environment. And, you know, in all walks of lives, different times, you find that people just aren't as pleasant as you'd like them to be. So in that situation, I did slightly grimace when you said that you walked in and you pointed at her, because I think sometimes when you fight fire with fire, it's not necessarily going to bring about a peaceful resolution. And an interesting thing that you said at the end was that she said, why didn't you tell me that you were transferring? So I believe...
She would have tried to stop me, that's why.
But if that were the case, then she perhaps did value you as an employee. That's a different perspective to maybe take on things. You know, why would she want you to transfer? Why would she be saying, I would have wanted you to stay? So my point is that sometimes an employer or a boss might have other things that are going on in their lives, not to kind of cut them slack, but I would perhaps take a step backwards, look at the situation and say, well, how do they interact with other people? Is that their manner? It's not justifying things, but it's also putting a slightly different perspective on things, so that I think often people take things very personally and they feel like, oh, it's just me. But actually, if they interact like that with other people, you know, you might be able to find a remedy that might sort the situation. So you might want to take them out for coffee and say, I know the thought sounds really...
I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're all
although
humans.
you like in that situation, that's the last thing you'd want to do.
It is.
But if you really want to sort of reach an agreement and change things, I suppose, in the organisation, in the environment, you kind of have to do things a bit outside the box, don't you?
You do. And I think as well, you know, particularly if someone really values their job and they don't, and so oftentimes, so we were discussing before, you know, work is such a vital part of our lives. You know, we complain about it, but it gives us purpose, and especially when you really enjoy a role. So, you know, often you don't want to actually just leave abruptly. So, you know, going back to your story, you know, that was one of the things that, you know, when we discussed it, was really sad about your story. The fact that your working life, you really put so much effort into it, you really enjoyed it, cut short. So, you know, that's why I am advocating different solutions sometimes. So, you know, take them out for coffee, or maybe escalate to their boss and say, you know, I'm really not happy with their behaviour, but I think what's really important, my whole point is the way you approach situations. So I think if you perhaps approach it in the same way that, you know, a toxic boss is approaching the situation, you kind of lose your advantage slightly. So you need to kind of stay in control, and you need to be as calm and professional as you can. And it's hard, I guess, when it's such an emotive situation. But I think you have a lot more power when you kind of take the high road slightly.
Okay, that's good advice. It's definitely a different way of looking at things. Because we're all human and we make mistakes, and we do want to naturally lash out when someone lashes at us. But all right, some cases that situation was solved, but in other cases it could have made things worse. But I did want to make a point as well, because I did mention earlier that I see myself before, like I think I was a little bit toxic in the sense that I was extremely demanding with my staff. And I didn't realise I was doing that, because, you know, I was working on a very busy web team, and with websites I'm very particular, and everything has to be correct, because one mistake on there could mean you lose someone, you lose a client, you lose a customer, whatever. And there were frequent mistakes. I was very, very strict and really like on top of them all the time to make sure that they didn't make mistakes. There was a point that I even started charging for every mistake that I found on the website. I was totally not allowed to do that, but I did. Yeah. But then I thought, no, that's taking it a bit too far. And it was only when a manager saw the way I was sort of dealing with the staff. Most times we got on well, but there were times that I was too much. And it was only when someone spoke to me that I kind of realised, look, you have to calm down. Not everyone works the same way as you. Not everyone is the same as you. You have to, because before I'd always worked on my own. I was responsible for myself. I was, so I didn't have those dealings with other people really. And now that I had sort of their work as well to oversee, it was like, oh my God, this is too much. So I think sometimes you have to kind of make allowances. Don't expect your manager or your boss to be perfect. They're human. They've got stuff going on at home as well. They've got difficult situations. They're making decisions that you probably have no idea about in the company. They're stressed. And I think it's, if you do have an issue, I think the first step is to go, just talk to them, have a conversation with them and say, look, I'm a bit uncomfortable with this situation. And hopefully most bosses, like I did, most bosses will kind of listen to that and say, okay, you know what, I'm gonna work on that. And that can resolve a whole situation. So I think we just have to be a bit understanding on both sides.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you there.
But there are nightmares as well, right?
There are. And, if upon doing all of that, you find that the boss really isn't kind of changing their behaviour towards you, then I would say that individuals don't have to put up with bad behaviour and, bosses not behaving the way they should. So that's when you maybe want to consider any, like I said, internal measures. And what's really important there is to document, factual examples of, any type of behaviour that you really deem to be unacceptable. So maybe take a look at the company policies. Every company will have a policy about, how individuals are supposed to conduct themselves. So if, for instance, you feel that your boss has gone outside of what is acceptable, then, make a note of that, because if ultimately you are going to raise either a grievance internally or take it externally, you're going to have factual information to back that up.
Alrighty. So we've got a couple of minutes left. So I'd just like to know what the two of you are doing now with your lives. Are you working? What are you doing now?
Oh, me?
Yeah, do you know? So you're not at that company anymore?
No, I just left it last year. Now I'm working in a theatre as an usher, and I'm also doing acting and spoken word and writing as well.
Okay, and are you happy doing that? Absolutely. Is that something that you enjoy?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you don't regret leaving the company then?
Not the slightest.
But it hasn't put you off working other places then?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, good. All right, then how about you?
I've got two jobs now. I work part-time for one job, which is the development office of HR Associate Disabled People. Okay. Brilliant job. And I work part-time as a supervisor for a large market research company called TNS.
Okay. Enjoying it?
Very much so. Both jobs are pretty challenging.
So you've not had any more experiences with toxic bosses?
No more toxic bosses.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay then. Well, the main thing is, guys, if you are going, like we said, we've had lots of great advice here from Maria today. But the main thing is don't sort of just let the situation drag out. Do get help. There are people that you can speak to in your workplace, like you said, to go to whoever the toxic person is, if they are indeed toxic, go to their manager. There are measures, but don't keep it to yourself, because what may happen if you just try and bear with all these problems, and you're going to get more stress, you're going to take that stress home, it's going to affect your family. So make sure you don't sort of settle for it and just accept it as normal, but make sure you resolve it. So thanks so much, guys, for your stories and for your great advice, Maria. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again next time. If you want any information about our guest today, you can visit the website chrissybshow.tv. And if you'd like to email me, you can do so on chris@chrissybshow.tv. Bye for now.